I could tell you. So I'm a big fan of electronics, and I've got the Panoptix on the boat. I've had the Panoptix now for a couple of years. I've been using it though, the PS30 for 3 years. And the first year I had it the standard configuration, so call it like the port starboard configuration. And the first year I got a little frustrated because I'd see the fish coming in, but I didn't know where they were in my spread. They kind of get lost between the cannonball and the flasher, but I couldn't physically see where they actually were. So when I put it on my boat, I put it in the flip configuration where it's like we call it north-south configuration. So I can see in front of the boat and I can see behind the boat. And I love that configuration. I know Casey thinks completely otherwise. And that's okay because different opinions matter. And I think the right answer is both, actually. Both ways have their merits, and there isn't actually a perfect solution. But, he was talking today about the Panoptics, and, the one thing he made a ton of sense about was by having the standard configuration, he goes, pay attention to which side of the screen the fish are coming in from. He goes, because if you're going to have to make a turn, he goes, are you going to turn in if the fish are all coming from the outside?
Right.
No, you're going to turn out, right? Whereas for me, in my configuration, I can't see that. But what I can see is I can see the fish coming at the front of the boat, and I'm notorious now for adjusting riggers before they even get to me. But these different things, and it's making me scratch my head because I'm actually adding the Garmin LVS 62 this year on a pole. So I'm actually now going to flip my PS30 back into standard configuration because I'm now going to have the new live sonar that'll go 500 feet back on a pole that I can point wherever I want. So you hear these little things, and like again, there's no right or wrong answer, but it's the merits of which way you can configure something. You can configure something in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I think that definitely got me thinking again.
So you touched on a little bit there, but what got you going on getting the Livescope when you've already got Panoptics on the boat?
I'm a tech junkie. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think the Garmin PS30. It's a great system, but as you do start getting deeper and deeper, you lose resolution. I'm not afraid to fish deep. In Toronto this year, my deepest king came at 255 foot rigger. So I'm not afraid to go deep. Yeah. That's where the LVS 62 was specifically designed. It was designed for the salt to go really deep. So that was honestly one of the main reasons I bought it. The other thing is, and the reason I flipped the transducer last time is, I like to be able to see where my cannonball is, where my flasher is, and where my bait is. And I can do that to some extent with the PS30, but the depth limitations are there. With the LVS 62, I got a good friend of mine has it. You can see the Twinkie flies in that thing. That's the level of resolution that was reduced. So that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And then having the ability now with it on a pole, I fish out of Toronto. I fish on the famous Toronto drop. I can be fishing right on the ledge, and I can be, let's say, on the 150, 170 line, so on the deep side, just on the edge. And I can now, with this new one on the pole, I can, instead of having it shooting behind the boat, I can say, I'm going to turn that shallow, and I'm actually going to look at the 80-foot ledge, and I want to see what's going on there. So I can now start taking the guesswork out of, am I going to turn in because I think there's fish shallow? No, I can shoot the transducer 500 plus feet and actually see what's there, or vice versa. I can be on the shallow side and fire it into the deep side. So I think that's one of the big reasons for me. I want to be able to actually start honing in on the structure, because on the Canadian side, especially, whether it be on the Niagara Bar, whether it be on the Toronto Drop, there's a lot of structure that I think can really be beneficial by using that LVS 62 and not having to actually go there with the boat, but scan. That's what the bass guys are doing. They're using this Livescope to scan areas and not fish them.
Right.
Well, why can't we do that?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you next, because my home waters are Minnesota and Wisconsin, and people have been using Livescope for ice fishing now for 6-7 years. And it used to be, if you talk to a tournament guy and went, how do you fish? They'd be like, I Swiss cheese the ice, I'm going out and checking all these holes and dropping my deucer in them. And now they drill one hole, they can shoot, and they can see 100 yards all the way around them.
They know where to go.
And they're able to eliminate water much faster. So how do you see this kind of revolutionizing as more and more people figure it out? Like we're seeing in Minnesota right now in the open water too, is all these drop shot guys now are using Livescope, and they literally go, it's right there, it's 30 feet out, and they bobber fish, they drop it right on top of their head. I mean, how do you see this thing changing the way that we fish for salmon and trout?
Yeah, I think the one thing is we're always moving, right? So I think we're always moving. I'd say it changes a couple things. If I think about like this, I've been using a PS30 for 3 years, 2 years on my own boat, and previous year on a friend's boat. That started to help me understand like what were the fish doing? Was there a particular rig that was bringing the fish in? So sometimes you'd see them, sometimes you see them come into a high rigger and then suddenly shoot down, and you kept seeing the high rigger bring them in, shooting down. Well, before I had the Panoptics, sometimes like that higher rigger is doing nothing. I'm gonna change it up. Right. The moment I changed it up, my spread's dead.
Yep.
I didn't know that's what was happening. It was actually the high rigger bringing them in, and then they were biting somewhere else. So it's all about, there's a saying, a fool with a tool is still a fool. You gotta be able to interpret the data, right? Yep. So it's interpreting what it's actually doing. So I think that's the first piece. Sometimes in my flip configuration, I can see a fish, is it on my flash or my bait, or is it actually infatuated with my cannonball? If it's the cannonball, then I probably need to short my leaders. Right? Because it's actually, they're not interested in the flash or it's too far away. I like to run a longer leader most times, so I can start playing with leader lengths. If the fish keeps coming in and they're following my rig and they're not biting, I got to change. It doesn't like something. Like the fish don't like something. I got to start changing. So I think, if you interpret it, you'll get more bites. That's the first thing. I think the second piece, though, is kind of what I touched on. I think with some of the newer, higher powered stuff, and the stuff that is directional, so you can actually tell it where you can face it where you want to face it. You can take out some of that searching or guessing work, right? You can be fishing a line that you've got some level of confidence, and you can be scanning somewhere else. You can be scanning 500 feet in front. Like I'll tell you, the walleye guys fishing Bay of Quinte in the fall, they're all using the 62 or the 34, and they've got it set facing forward the entire time. And you go, why is that? They're seeing walleye in front of their boat, and as they're going through them, the walleye are doing this, and actually they're on the port, the starboard, or they're going super deep. When they go deep, they're inactive because you've spooked them, or they're going to the side. And they'll literally, turn the boat and make sure that they're now dragging their gear right through that school of fish. Yeah. Right? People don't think about it that way. They're thinking they got to look behind at their gear. No, they're actually using it to look in front to see where the fish are. Or like what I'm going to start doing is using it to scout, on either side of the boat, and especially on structure. If I'm on the deep side, what's the shallow side look like? If I'm on the shallow, what's the deep side look?
Avoid straining water.
Yeah. So it's less having to run through water just to see what's there and actually scanning it. So I think it's just good, but again, it's all about how you use the data.
Yeah, I got a buddy that fishes a bunch of inland lakes, and he's been doing it, for years and years, and he's like, I always thought when I pulled in someplace, the fish would do this. And he's like, what I'm seeing with Livescope is they're just going deep.
Go down, yeah.
Yeah, they're just going down. They're staying basically right in the same spot, but they're going down.
Yeah, and any other piece I'd say with whether it be Livescope or Panoptic, you see if the fish are active or not. Like if you're going through fish that are not active, with a 2D sonar, that'll be like the greatest picture, and you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna get bit, but actually no, you're not. Those fish do not care less, right? So that's where I think the line. I love the Livescope sonar. I've had it now in my own boat for 2 years. I don't even look at my 2D anymore. Like my 2D is on the dash, and like I can't tell you the last time I actually looked at it. So I'm looking at the PS30. I can't wait to put the LVS 62 on. When I originally bought the LVS 62, I was toying with selling the PS30. I instead went and bought another 10-inch screen for the back of the boat so I can literally have the two of them stacked and see the two, because I just think they're going to actually tell me different things.
Got some fans of your channel popping in here. And again, Mark's channel is Kings Landing Sportfishing on YouTube. Jim says, how was the walleye fishing? Do you got walleye fever now?
You know what? My friend John Sipko got me out to Bay of Quinte about 2 or 3 times this year. It was fun. No offense to walleye guys. Little boring when you compare it to a screaming king salmon. But I can tell you, like my wife and I love eating walleye, so that was probably the highlight for me, was keeping the odd keeper that I could keep. There was a slot limit, so keeping the odd keeper was nice. But it extended my season. I got a few extra days. The only challenge is from really middle of May until end of September, my wife would say that she's single. So I can't take on too many more hobbies or too many more fishing hobbies. There's a reason I don't ice fish. There's a reason I wasn't walleye fishing. So I can probably get away with a few walleye trips a year, but if I get too heavy into walleye, I'll get divorced.
All right.
And that's not a good thing because it's very expensive, and I do love my wife.
Yeah. There's
So
nothing more expensive than that.
yeah. So, but no, walleye was
Boats
good.
are cheap compared to
Yeah.
that.
Walleye was good, but I'm a salmon fisherman. I love salmon fishing. My wife would kill me if I start fishing 12 months of the year. I'm literally like from May 15th until September 30th. I'm not around.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's another fan of your channel. Says, how about some more video content? More, please, from the Meat Man.
So, Mr. Meat Man, I gotta start by saying I apologize. I think some people know, some people don't know. I not only do I have my charter business, I've got my business projectsalmon.ca, which is a lot of meat rigs, flashers, and salmon tackle. That started off as a hobby for buddies that turned into something I never expected. And it has turned into an incredibly busy and successful business for me. So now every spare minute, I'm literally painting salmon flashers and meatheads, tying rigs, and really running that business. So it has really impacted the channel. I do hope to get some more videos out shortly. I probably will do a bunch more when I get the boat in the water in the spring. But yeah, the flasher and the tackle business have been doing really well. I started that business really trying to bring quality tackle to Canadians because it was so hard for Canadians, frankly, to get good tackle in Canada, get the unique custom stuff that we get here in the United States, and then it was really expensive. So I've been doing that, but what's got interesting is not only do I service now Canadians, some weeks I ship more to the United States than I do Canada. So it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But what people don't know is I have a full-time job as well.
Right.
So I've got a full-time job. It's a big job. I've got the charter business that I run pretty steady in the summer, including taking almost all my vacation time to be on the water, and now this tackle business. So I don't like to sleep. So something has to give, and I am married as well. So that's trying to figure out all these things at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
No.
Sounds like you're probably bored a lot.
Yeah. When I have nothing to do, I'm not a happy man. So yeah.
All right. Here's another question from Rob. He says, wondering what you recommend in regards to reels for wire dipsies. He says he's heard a lot of different opinions between high speed and regular.
Yep.
What do you recommend?
So I'll tell you first what I run on my boat, and no one likes this answer because you can't buy them anymore. But I'm a fan of the old Dakotas, right? So I run Dakota 700s, Dakota 800s predominantly on my boats. I do have a few Dakota 600s that are on. I've got maybe like a couple of 2 colors, 3 colors, 4 colors in the 600s, but all my rigger rods are Dakota 700s. I like the larger reel, larger capacity. Part of the reason I think I like the larger reel is actually a bit of that ratio question. The old reels didn't have a high-speed ratio, so by having the bigger reel, I got more line, bigger spool. I'm kind of getting a similar effect on those rigger rods. When it comes to my divers, I run the Dakota 700s predominantly. That being said, I do have a few friends that have been running some of the newer Dakotas for the divers. I just again like the bigger reel. That being said, I've been looking at, I think it was the Daiwa Saltist. I think they've got the high speed. That looks really interesting. I've said to a few folks, if I need to upgrade my Dakotas, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to go to the new Dakotas. I might go to the Daiwas actually.
The Saltists are really good. I actually have a couple, and they're really great. Thing you got to watch out when you're chartering clients, if you've seen this, Mark, people get excited and they start cranking it faster, just reeling faster. A lot of the cases is going to happen if the drag's not set right, you're going to rip the hook out of its mouth, especially with the high drag, the high speed. That's going to be an issue. So if you're a person that can control your reeling, I definitely recommend the 6-to-1, 100%. If it's somebody that's new or you're taking a lot of guests out that've never fished before, I definitely recommend the slower wheel to maintain that higher hookup ratio.
Very good. Great answer, guys. Any closing thoughts before we let you go here?
Say to folks, just always be learning, whether it be coming to these events, whether it be coming to, fishing with other people. I think about, I've been fishing out of the same marina now for since I was 14 with my dad. I'm 47 this year, and I tell you, I learned new spots to fish right by my marina last year. So just exploring different spaces all the time. So my advice to folks, constantly be learning, try new stuff. Don't
be open-minded.
Don't try new stuff on the days when you can't get a bite, because nothing's going to work probably most of those days, but try new stuff on those days that work. Keep opening your mind.
Yeah,